How do you want to?
So let me get started with our introduction and then I'll turn things over to you.
Sounds great.
Right. So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for this month's Discover Tennessee History webinar. We really appreciate you joining us on this windy and chilly January afternoon. So a couple quick things as we get started. Again, this is part of a series and we are recording this so folks can catch these later as well. So if you will be sure to keep your mics muted. Make sure you're seeing your name and feel free to interact with us. Ask questions, make comments in the chat box, and I'll help to monitor that for Hobart as he goes through his presentation. We do have a Padlet for this series, so you can use this link or QR code, and I'll share this again at the end of the presentation, where you can find information on today's session as well as all of the previous sessions. So again, feel free to check that out if you've missed some of the previous ones that we've had in this series over the year. So again, I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to Hobart now, who's going to talk to us about some of the cool things that State Parks is doing. All right, you're muted.
You gotta love it. All right, so let me find my screen share button, and I will start talking to y'all. All right, so all right, share. All right, can y'all see my screen now? I'm assuming you can. All right, let's go ahead and just because I wanted to lead off talking to y'all about some things that we have been doing in state parks over the last little bit. Last year, a colleague of mine, Sarah Green, shared with y'all some stuff that we had been, oh gosh, how do I get this? There it is. That we had been developing inside state parks for educators in particular. Like, so how do you get in touch with the state park rangers to do a program, either coming to your school or setting up a field trip or something like that. So we've created actually some resources on our park pages. And the reason I want to bring this up is, so I work for the Division of Education and Interpretation, which is a support organization for our interpreters in the field. And so one of the things that we like to do is be able to network and provide opportunities for networks opportunities for educators and for our rangers to kind of interact and collaborate in kind of a setting. But a lot of our programming is done by the folks in the field. So I know when I was a ranger, starting my career at Old Stone Fort, I did a lot of field trips and I did a lot of school visits. And that continued when I went to Fort Loudon State Historic Area out in Von Orr, Tennessee. So I did want to review this real quick because we've got a lot of use from this, and the feedback we've had over the year from the rangers using it, from the rangers interacting with it, as well as the educators interacting with it, have been really positive. So I did want to take a minute to kind of like refresh everybody on this too, because it's been a really useful tool for us going on. Because in the past, like when I started as a ranger at Old Stone Fort, the way you would set up a field trip is you would call the front office and you would get probably whoever was in the office and they would write it down on a paper calendar. And there was never really a chance to say, "Hey, I'm teaching this topic in my class right now. Could your rangers speak on this particular, or here are the standards for this?" Because a lot of times as park interpreters, we think in terms of interpretive themes, and we don't always have state standards at the forefront of our heads. But if we get a reminder, it's something that we can definitely work into how we approach providing an experience for students when they come to the park. So I just wanted to kind of give everybody kind of like, okay, well, how do you get to this stuff on our park page? So let's kind of go to the main park page here, which is TennesseeStateParks.com. And I put all these links together in a PDF, as well as with a PDF of the presentation I'm going to give that talks about an app that we're launching here soon too, that has some augmented and virtual reality experiences that we are going to be continuing to upload into the over the next year. I was hoping to have more by the time this talk went out, but right now we've got two, but they're two really solid experiences, which are kind of cool, which you can do from really anywhere in the state of Tennessee. But anyways, on the state parks page, you could go to the education and youth tab here, and then we've set up a tab for educators down here. Right here. And when you click on this, it will take you actually to a submit a request. And I've pulled up the submit a request, and there's a direct link to this too. And I'll go ahead and close out of this. That will allow you to request either a ranger or a field trip inside state parks. And what's great about this is it allows you to communicate both where you're coming from, kind of what you're teaching, and as well as kind of what you would like for one of our park rangers to cover during a field trip. But also, you can set up ranger visits to schools, which have been very popular in the past. Like I said, I did those a lot when I was a frontline position at Old Stone Fort and Fort Loudon State Historic Area. And so I went into a lot of schools and talked a lot about prehistoric Native Americans, the Middle Woodland time period. I talked a lot about the French and Indian War, some about the American Revolution. And so being able to do those things and set up those and have those kind of arranged beforehand and all of this information really makes it easy for our rangers and interpreters to kind of meet the needs of the folks like y'all kind of out in the field doing the teaching. But the other thing that's kind of interesting too is there's also an opportunity. I mean, we're living in the virtual world and we're doing this webinar virtually. So there are several of our parks who are also open to doing virtual connections. But really, this is a great way to kind of communicate with the ranger ahead of time and kind of get you in touch with the right person. I know sometimes some of the hesitation for communicating with the park is you don't know. It's easy if you know somebody and you know the ranger who's there and you've established a relationship with them, but how do you establish a relationship with them? And this is one of those ways to do that, is to use this education form here. And what you will do is you'll just kind of select what park you want to go to, and then you can set up the type of experience that you're looking to have established. And I just wanted to review this again because we've got about a year's worth of data and people are really using this. And if you've not used it yet, for a park experience, it seems to be something that folks have really kind of enjoyed. And I know the feedback we have received from our park ranger staff has also been just incredible, like incredibly. It's been beneficial for everyone everywhere because it really kind of helps our staff determine and kind of customize our interpretive experiences to kind of match the needs of folks who are coming to visit us, which is kind of what we're all about. So it's a really cool tool. Sarah Green, our education coordinator, developed this and she deserves all the props for it, but it's a really, really great tool. But in addition to this, there's also, I know that there is, there's always financial considerations for any kind of off-site anything. As a matter of fact, talking to folks over the last couple of years, field trips have been almost impossible. And we do have some funding options through the Tennessee Conservancy. So you can actually, to fund buses and travel to some of our parks as well too. And so there is a process for that, and I've included a PDF download that outlines this. This is the PDF here, and that'll also be in the documents that I'll submit to y'all. They'll put on the Padlet after this presentation. But it's a pretty simple, straightforward process. It's a partnership between us and the Tennessee State Parks Conservancy. And this past year, they funded quite a number of field trips to parks to talk about to do a variety of things. A lot of science education, some history education too. So it's been really kind of a successful program. And if money in busing is kind of one of those hurdles for y'all, this is definitely something that you should check out. And again, this is all something that will be linked in the materials that I'll attach to the Padlet after we're done talking. But that's just something really quick I wanted to cover because it's something that I think would, me reflecting on my experience of being a ranger in the field and being able to have that kind of communication before a group arrived would have been really useful. Reflecting back on like my experience as a frontline interpreter at like I said, at Old Stone Fort and Fort Loudon State Historic Area. But we'll kind of close out of that, and then we'll kind of get to talking about this new thing that's kind of on the horizon in parks, which is like really, really, really cool. So I'm going to move this bar out of the way. So one of the cool things that we've been kind of developing in parks for the last year has been we've been looking at ways to bring the stories from our parks kind of outside the park boundaries. Traditionally it's tough to tell the story for us rangers unless you're at our site. So we don't have. We're still working on developing a more robust web presence so people can access our stories kind of anywhere. But one of the things we've looked at right now is we've actually developed an app with a company called Time Looper, which will allow us to do some kind of interesting things from an interpretive standpoint, and would be something that could be potentially useful to you guys as educators in your classrooms, as something kind of an interesting experience. So we've been working on with this company to develop some augmented and virtual reality experiences, which will basically allow you to you can project people. We've scripted some interpretive programs that you can project in, on a phone or on a screen. You can screen share. We've done that several times in the past for groups. You can also, we've recreated some landscapes in places where it would be kind of prohibitively expensive for us to reconstruct, like, say, a whole town. You'll see an example of that, like, here in a second. But this is something that we've been working on for the last year, and there will be more stuff coming down the line. Right now, as I said, there's really two experiences, although one experience is a Civilian Conservation Corps program experience, and that is something that is definitely multi-site. And so we actually have that tagged to numerous sites within the system as a similar experience, specifically around the what we call the Iron Mike statues, which is a CCC commemorative statue that is at places like Montgomery Bell has one, Cumberland Mountain has one, Pickett State Park has one. But we've also been we can put this experience kind of anywhere, and you don't have to be in the parks to access it. But let's talk a little bit about this. All right, so the name of the app is the Explore Tennessee State Parks app, and we've not officially launched it yet. So we're still kind of like in a soft launch mode, kind of a beta and testing mode with it. So if you guys, want to kind of play with it, here's kind of a sneak peek at what is kind of coming down the pike with this. So this app is available, and I've got the Android version and the iPhone version pulled up. I've got it. My personal phone is an Android. My state phone is an iPhone. So I've run it on both platforms, and it runs pretty well. But it's pretty easy to find under the Explore Tennessee State Parks app. It's pretty easy to download. And it did not take me like any time to pull it up when I went looking for it for the first time. And I checked it last night just to make sure that nothing had changed. Sometimes these things are with technology, something doesn't work. So I checked it. So this data is good as of last night at 10 o'clock when I checked these before I went down. But yeah, you can get both of these from the Google Play Store or the Android app or the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. So it's available both places. And what this app does, kind of the loading screen on it looks pretty similar for both applications, but it's a pretty user-friendly application. When you download the app, the first thing you'll kind of do is you'll show the Tennessee State Parks logo flash. It will want to know your location, because if you're in a park, the park has an experience. So if you're just a visitor later on, it will actually notify you too that you're getting near a place with an experience. So if you did download this app, it will tell you when things get uploaded. And we are looking at I'm working on a project right now to expand another experience in West Tennessee. But this is kind of what the loading screen looks like for both the Apple and Android versions of it. The Android is on the right. The Apple version is on the left. And it might be that I'm running dark mode on Android. I think they look pretty similar across devices. So whatever device you have, this is what the loading screen will look like. And what's kind of cool about it is when you open it up, it will kind of show you this map. And so you can see, I screenshotted this last night just to show you that it can show you where you're at. So there you see me on the blue dot on the right. I'm in Wheeling, West Virginia right now at this leadership school for state parks. But it shows you these various experiences that are available across the state, and these are geolocated to one of these is geolocated to a historic home in Morgan County, attached to Frozen Head State Park, the Stone Cypher Kelly House, which we'll talk about here in a minute. These other ones are all tied to a CCC experience at a park that was impacted by the New Deal and the Civilian Conservation Corps. And we'll talk more about that here in a second as well. So it's kind of interesting. So if you download the app, it'll show you kind of what's nearby. But it's not the only way for you to download these. You don't, like I said, you don't have to be in the park to actually access these experiences. So you can set up a list view, which is what I have over here, and it'll show you everything that is available. And so it is something that is you can download it from anywhere, you can access it from anywhere, and you can even start running the app from anywhere. As a matter of fact, the screenshots you'll see here in a minute from me just demoing. I ran it from here last night. So it's something that's pretty user friendly and pretty accessible once you get it running. It has a lot of different options on it as well as some links that link back to our website as well too. So, and it's got a lot of accessibility options on it as well. So that is supported with both screen reader technology as well as the various fonts for folks with ADHD and dyslexia, as well as audio descriptions of everything going on as well too. So it does have a lot of accessibility options built into it as well. But yeah, you can navigate it. You can navigate it from, like I said, from this map here, or you can navigate it from this list here. It's dealer choice. Depending upon what I'm doing, I'll either use the list view or the map view. Normally, I'll be honest, I'm in the list view because I can go to immediately what I want to find. Normally, I know where I'm at and where the park is at in relation to me, but the list is normally how I navigate this thing. And so, what's really cool is here's kind of an example of what you'd get when you do. You'll go to that menu, and then you can download an experience. And so, the experience you can download either over you can download them over your cell coverage, or you can download them over Wi-Fi. Some of them are larger than others, so I might, if it's something that's really big, you might be able to download it when you're attached to Wi-Fi, rather than doing it, if you're in the field. But I'm assuming most of you guys, if you download it, would maybe download it from home or from work. But when you open the app, this is kind of what you'll be presented with. Or when you pick an experience, you'll have the park page, and then you'll have the kind of the adventure there. When you download the adventure, which is what we're kind of referring to these experiences as, you'll get a map like this that kind of shows you how everything is laid out. So this is a example of the Frozen Head State Park experience at the Stone Cipher Kelly House, which is a house that was built in the early 19th century. It's one of the oldest houses in Morgan County. And it was a house that was occupied up and through the 1980s by the various members of the Stone Cipher and then the Kelly families. It was acquired by Parks about 10 years ago from the families, and it's a site that's one of those ones. The reason we kind of have gone with this experience is it's one that would be difficult for us to staff with the existing staff from Frozen Head, but this experience here allows us to be able to kind of share the story of the Kelly family at the farm there, at the farm and the adjoining general store from the post-Civil War. So this is a trail that is set up to kind of take you through kind of the story of the general store and the story of there's a root cellar on the property, as well as talking about the family history. There's a cemetery on site. So we have an individual you can listen to talk about the family history. And then folks kind of talking about the kind of the changing history of the region that kind of caused the house used to be on it's still a pretty major road, but it used to be on a major road running east-west across the state. And it was a really important kind of, if you're going to, what was Wartburg, or what is Wartburg now, and kind of through Morgan County, it was a major route, kind of through the region. And so we've talked a little bit about kind of the changes in time that kind of cause folks to like not use the general store there as much. But it's really cool because in addition to the map there, it allows us to do things that the really exciting thing for me as a park professional is it allows us to recreate virtually a landscape that we would really struggle with, from a financial and a staffing standpoint, that would have existed historically. So the kind of the two screenshots you're seeing here are a virtual reality landscape that the app creates for us. And these folks in this picture are actually actors that we've hired who match the ages of the folks we were trying to portray in this. The Stone Cipher Kelly House was not only like an agricultural or farming residence, it was also the site of a general store and post office, which was important both before the Civil War and after the Civil War. And the Kellys operated the general store there up until about the early 1900s. The dates on kind of when it exactly went out are a little bit fuzzy on the general store section of it, but in the aftermath of the American Civil War in Morgan County, the site was kind of an important community touch point for a lot of folks because of its position as the post office. So what we did here was we created a augmented reality or a virtual reality landscape that kind of was able to recreate what this farm looked like to the best of our knowledge, almost 150 years ago. And the building that is behind the individual in the brown coat there is actually the general store, which is no longer standing on the property. And we used some archival photos from some general stores in the region, and then kind of matched it to what we know the footprint of the building was to the best of our knowledge. There is one existing photograph, but just like you guys who deal with historic photographs, there's always like the historic photograph, but it's not of the angle that you want. And this is true for this building for sure. We can kind of see the edge of the building in one of the photographs, but the house really blocks its view. But the general store was adjacent to the home, and it was run out of that. And we actually have in addition to the footprint and kind of the local stories about it, there's also several ledgers that were recovered from the house when the state acquired the house. And so what we did here was we did some research on the folks who were in the ledger, as well as some folks in the community, to try and provide folks with the ability to kind of get an idea for what this community was like in roughly about like 1870, the mid 1870s. I think the date from the ledger that we used was from 1876. And so what we did was we looked for folks who had done business in the general store, and then we did some research on them, and we wrote scripts for them, kind of based on what they were buying at the time, and kind of their general experience in the community as well too. Some folks we've actually managed to find quite a bit about. There's an individual there. My view of myself is blocking. I can't see if he's in frame, but the guy who's just clipped off to the right there was actually an interesting individual. He's an Irish immigrant who we actually found out was involved in the lumber industry locally. So he's talking about kind of coming to Morgan County to set up his lumber operation in the area. We've got a formerly enslaved individual here who was married to a free man of color who's a blacksmith in the community, who we know from records lived near the farm. And she talks about the experience of someone, a person of color living in Morgan County after the Civil War, as well as the experience of being, married to a free person of color and then freed herself, as well as talking about the Kelly family's history with enslavement, because the Kellys were owned about 10% of the enslaved people in Morgan County, according to the 1860 slave schedule. Then we've got an individual here who is a young man who we found in the ledger, who at the time of the ledger was about to get married. So he's talking kind of about this experience of a young person who is living in Morgan County after the war, and kind of trying to figure out what the future holds about him. And then this individual over here on the far left is a widower who we've also found doing business with the ledger. So it's kind of interesting. It gives us the opportunity to deal with real people, provide real experiences, and allow people to. Even though we can't staff the building with interpreters down there all the time, this is something that is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, provided you have downloaded the app and have access to power and everything like that. But it's a pretty cool experience down there as well. And so the one other thing I did want to talk about, there's one other experience there too, where Mary Jane Kelly, who was who was the woman who lived in the house for quite some time, also talks about the usage of the root cellar and the family cemetery up there, and gives some family history about the Kellys as well, because the Kellys had a fairly Daniel Kelly went up having to hide from Civil War guerrillas, and the family dealt a lot with bushwhackers, and Daniel Kelly was actually killed under questionable circumstances in December of 1864. In between Knoxville and the Kelly farm. The family lore is that it was bushwhackers, which is plausible for sure. We've not been able to kind of determine exactly what happened yet, but Mary Jane Kelly talks a lot about his death, as well as the folks who were buried up in the cemetery back behind the house. The other experience that we have right now is the Civilian Conservation Corps experience at Cumberland Mountain State Park, and it's not just at Cumberland Mountain; it is at several of the CCC sites. You can find it at it's been tagged to Pickwick Landing. It's been tagged to Montgomery Bell. It's been tagged to Pickett State Park. It's also been tagged to Norris Dam State Park. And the Civilian Conservation Corps story is an incredibly important story for Tennessee state parks. Of all the parks in the 1930s, like, they all came from New Deal programs, and the Civilian Conservation Corps was involved in the majority of those projects. And so when we set out to start offering this experience, we were really interested in telling the story of the Civilian Conservation Corps in Tennessee. But these experiences you'll see they're laid out in the very similar way, so they're pretty easy to navigate. So you'll be presented with a park page, kind of like the one you see here, as well as the Start Adventure, and then you can download the app experience, and then it will give you an introduction, which is a clip of a ranger that will be. I love it because it's my supervisor, so I always laugh about it, because we always tease him back and forth, because he'll get projected from the floor, and he'll give you he gives kind of an overview of the Civilian Conservation Corps program and its importance to Tennessee and Tennessee state parks. And it's really good kind of way to kind of set the tone for things. Now, again, if you're doing this in front of the Iron Mike statues at Cumberland Mountain State Park, it's kind of interesting because it gives you a little bit more background and information on the program than you would get from just kind of looking at the monument there. But this experience is also really cool for the other thing too. So we kind of consulted some memoirs, some oral histories, and created a couple of composite characters to kind of represent the Tennessee story in the Civilian Conservation Corps, and we've got a variety of objects. So when you open this experience, one of the options you have to is to open a augmented reality experience, which will have objects on the table that kind of help to prompt a story about the Civilian Conservation Corps members. And we've got three different CCC enrollees who are represented there. We've got a CCC enrollee of color. We've got a CCC enrollee from in-state, and then a CCC enrollee from out of state. And so each one of these guys interact with two objects on the table, and will then be able to tell you, kind of what these objects meant to them while they were enrolled in the program. So we've got the guy on the far right there is holding a book, and he talks a lot about education because the Civilian Conservation Corps education efforts were really, really important to the program, and something that also had a really lasting impact on conservation in the United States, but also in Tennessee, because a lot of these folks who got involved and engaged with the CCC, some of their first experiences really doing a bunch of stuff that would be like outdoor recreation or just kind of outdoor stuff in general was as part of the Civilian Conservation Corps program. So the education efforts are something that were really, really important for this as well. He also talks about his experience of exclusion and kind of the real hostility that that African American CCC enrollees faced in some of these communities. African American CCC enrollees were all in state. They were not. The CCC companies did not move outside the state. They were all in state, and so it's a really kind of an interesting way to kind of engage with that story. The guy in the center is our in-state CCC enrollee. They're holding a Pulaski. Pulaski is a firefighting tool, which is still in use today, but it was something that was, you'll see it in a lot of, it's got as much symbolism behind it as it is a practical tool. And honestly, I'll tell you from my experience doing wildland fire stuff, there's a lot better tools out there now, but the Pulaski, you see it on a tool rack, and it's got so much symbolism behind it. You kind of want to carry it just so that you can almost feel like you're one of those guys there. But he's talking about the Pulaski and kind of the importance of the skills that CCC enrollees learn and gain from this that would be applied later in their lives, but also just kind of what it meant to have a job and be able to feel like you were doing something, during the Great Depression. And then the guy on the far left is our out-of-state CCC enrollee there, and I can't remember which object he's got there, but it may have been his talking about letters, writing letters home to his folks, and kind of the experience of being a long way from home in a place you've never been before, and kind of what that experience is like as a young man. And so this experience right here is really kind of great. It doesn't take, none of these are very lengthy experiences. If you use them in your classroom, I don't know that they would necessarily be able to replace kind of everything you do, but they would be something that'd be kind of interesting to to add into something that you do. And like I said, we are hoping to really kind of expand these out. So currently I am working on expanding this. I'm in the middle of a project right now working on on providing a virtual landscape at the Pinson Mounds State Archaeological Park. So the plan there is to use archaeological data as well as artwork from the woodland time period, as well as objects that would be significant to people in prehistory to be able to tell the story of the mounds and why the mounds are important, why the mounds represent an important time in Tennessee's history. We are also hoping to work with some indigenous partners on developing some of this as well too, but we are kind of in the early stages of that right now, kind of getting together the GIS data and all that. And so the plan will be to be able to recreate a three-dimensional experience, kind of like the one you saw for the Frozen Heads Stone Cipher Kelly House, because if you've been to Pinson now, Pinson is there's a lot of trees in the way, and so prehistorically talking to folks, it would not have been nearly as many trees, and the view shed would have been much different than it is now. So we're really hoping that we can leverage some of these tools to do things that would be almost impossible or impractical for us to do in today's world, but would be something we can do virtually for everybody. The other ones that we're working on kind of creating a similar experience like we had for the CCC for a USCT soldier at Johnsonville. So we are kind of in the very early stages of that right now, kind of looking at our source material and kind of what objects we'd want to use to tell that story. And then finally, we're also looking at adding some additional interactive elements to the CCC experience. We're trying to play with the technologies out there for us to potentially have the ability to maybe ask some questions of the CCC enrollees, so something that would be interactive. And some other things that I did not put on the slide, just because, I mean, they'd be something that might be interested to some of your colleagues who teach some of the sciences. We were looking at developing some natural sciences offerings too. So some things that would talk about stream quality, water quality, um, uh, rare and endangered fireflies, and that kind of stuff as well too. And so that's kind of, I was hoping that we would have more by the time this is going, but this is kind of where the app is at this point. But it is on the App Store, and you can download it and you can play with it now, and kind of see, what kind of applications you would have with that. And so, yeah, kind of with that, there it is. I always get confused where I'm at. That's kind of what I'm at. So I'm good to take questions or answer any questions that anybody might have about any of this stuff from the chat box.
So if folks have questions, feel free to unmute yourself to ask, or you can just type them in the chat box, whichever you're more comfortable with.
Hey, Hobart, it's
Hey, Kelly.
Kelly. How are you?
I'm good.
Hey, I've got a question. I'm sorry if I missed it. I kind of had to check in and out. When do you all expect this to go live and be ready for consumption by the public?
It's open right now. We've just not done a formal announcement yet. We're wanting to get a few more assets in there, is what we're kind of looking. So we're trying to kind of build out a few more things so that when people open it, it's not just one or two things. We were wanting to build out a few more things. It's live now. You could find it if you hung up. You could find it now on your app store. So it is live at the moment. We've just not gone forward with it yet.
Okay, it's awesome. I do have it, and I haven't looked at some of the new parks that you guys have added, so I'm definitely going to explore that. I'm excited about it. It's going to be a great opportunity for folks.
Yeah, I think it'll be one of those things where you can definitely kind of use that as something to maybe augment, because I know arranging a field trip is very difficult. And so being able to bring somebody or bring an experience into a classroom would be something that would be kind of useful. So,
yeah. Thanks.
All right.
And Maureen had a question, wondering if there were multiple apps for exploring Tennessee state parks, that she downloaded one and it looked a little different.
Yeah, so there are currently, and I will kind of clear this up. There is a state parks, the official app, which is an old app, which we're hoping to get moved off of the App Store at some point. So if you look for the Explorer, and I'll go ahead and let's go back to, I'm going to try and share my screen again. There we go. All right, I'm going to go back and I'll show you the app that you want to look for is this Explore Tennessee State Parks app. And if you use the term like the Explore Tennessee State Parks app, it'll show up. The other one is just the Tennessee State Parks app, and it does look slightly different. It doesn't have the look for the green logo. The other one has a green, red, and blue logo. But if you see this green logo on it, that should do it. And I can blow it up too, so folks can kind of see that. So yeah, so that's where it's at.
So another question, are there plans to add Cedars of Lebanon to one that you're doing?
Yeah, so we've had some early discussions, but we've not really gotten anywhere yet. The idea that we'd like is to get most parks with an experience. Cedars of Lebanon would be, we've talked about that one more from the naturalist side. So Cedars of Lebanon, of course, has a great history with the WPA and some of the New Deal programs there too. But Cedars of Lebanon is also the home of some of the really rare cedar glade species that are out there. So we've talked about it, but I think the lead there right now is leaning towards some of the environmental stories that we have to tell there too. But I know that we would like to add something to the WPA, because I always feel like the poor WPA gets short shrift when we talk about the New Deal, despite the fact that they did a lot of stuff. At least I know it does in our park programming. But Cedars of Lebanon is a WPA project, so.
So another question, would any specific experiences be recommended as more age appropriate for elementary students?
So when we develop these for like the language in them is should be pretty appropriate as they are now for most elementary school students. I'm trying to think of anything. We kind of wrote it for yeah, I'd say elementary school students, so fourth, fifth grade kind of thing. For younger folks, we are looking at developing some additional stuff that is that is even more kind of focused on younger audiences. But yeah, when we wrote these kind of at the trying to go for the fourth and fifth grade kind of level for a lot of stuff. But yeah, as far as comprehension,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so it sounds like you guys are going to be developing these not just for social studies teachers, but also for science. And so
Right.
that would be particularly great for elementary classes who need to teach everything.
Right.
They're in those all-inclusive.
Right. And yeah, that's where we're kind of looking at next. Like we've got a few of the history experiences built out, and we've got a couple on the horizon for that. And I think our plan is to try and match those over the next little while. And but it's been really exciting. It's been, it's got its own. If you guys have ever developed an app, it's got its own it's got its own challenges, but it's been a lot of fun, and there's a lot of interesting stuff we can do with it that we would not be able to do traditionally. With kind of like most of the other stuff. The thing that I'm really excited about is you can access it from anywhere. So, you can really tag these things to almost anything. So yeah, right now we're in kind of the content phase, and we're actually hoping to hopefully add some folks to help out with some of this content creation as well too. We don't know yet, but we're hoping that that's the case. So yeah.
Well, do we have any other questions? If not, then we'll go back and just do a couple quick things as we get ready to wrap up. So again, just a reminder, and as I mentioned to Rose there in the chat box, we will be sharing links and things. However, send those to me, and I'll get those added to the Padlet for this series. And we will be posting the recording for this session as well. So you'll be able to find that there. Next month, we'll be back. We have 2 more sessions in this series for the school year. And next month, we're going to be looking at place-based learning using Sanborn maps. And so that will be teaching with primary sources. So myself and my colleague, Dr. Stacy Graham, will be presenting that session. If you've not already registered, you can find information about how to do that from this web address. And finally, if you're interested in receiving PD credit for attending today's session or for viewing this recording, if you will visit this site, you'll be able to fill out the form. It's a short survey, and then we will get you your PD certificate via email. We check these about once a week, so usually you should receive your PD certificate within about a week's time. If you don't, feel free to reach out to us and we'll get that sorted. Again, want to thank you guys so much for joining us today. Again, we'll be adding information to the Padlet, and we hope that we will see you next month. Hobart, do you have anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
No, I just, really glad to see everybody, and yeah, hope to see everybody soon in a park.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So again, thank you guys and have a great evening.